everybody, and welcome to another Globetrotting with Gillespie. Yes, it's me, Dana Gillespie, on the sofa at the Temple of Art and Music, known affectionately as the TAM. Now, today is really kind of special for me because my life took a turn for the better in 1972 when I was lucky enough to be given the role of the first Mary Magdalene in the stage version in London of Jesus Christ Superstar. And that never would have happened had the man sitting next to me not written it with Andrew Lloyd-Webber. Would you please welcome Mr. Tim Rice?
Lovely to see you.
It's great to see you. How many years is it? I've seen you, what, very briefly once, maybe?
Yeah, the odd ships passing in the night, but so to speak. But no, I haven't seen you properly for yonks, but it seems like no time at all.
It really does, actually.
Nothing has changed. I mean, I've been aware of what you've been up to. I've seen interviews, I've got albums, so I don't feel distanced from you.
Well, you know, I'm really honoured that you come and sit here in this place because, okay, I mean, that was the time when I was sort of with the David Bowie era, Main Man and everything, and they all left for America. And I was desperate to go and I was happy to do Superstar, but it really changed my life. But I remember you, you've always been tall and lanky in your jeans and everything, in a T-shirt. I got this great picture of the whole cast of Superstar, and we all looked so young. As it was, let's face it,
so young.
50 years ago. And I wanted to know what turned you on to music in the first place. Who was it? Because you're a rock man, aren't you?
Well, it was really pop, rock and roll, Elvis.
Yeah, me too.
All the pre-Beatles stuff, actually, and then, of course, the Beatles and the Stones, etc. But I also was very aware of musical theatre because my mum and dad had all the albums. But I had no desire whatsoever to go to a show, although I loved the albums. I was a vinyl freak, and I had my Elvis records, and then Cliff and the Shadows, and then eventually the Beatles. And it was the actual objects, the records, that excited me almost as much as the music. So my parents' album of West Side Story, or My Fair Lady, or Carousel, or whatever.
South Pacific,
all those. They had them all, plus Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah.
But just having the album in my hands, the black round thing, that was really enough. I didn't think, gosh, I must go and see the show. I did go and see My Fair Lady because that was such a big show, and my parents wanted to see it, so we had a family treat. But that was about the only show I saw other than Salad Days when I was very, very young, which I just remember. But I hadn't seen anything when I met Andrew. I mean, I knew the scores, though. That was what helped.
Are you still a vinyl man?
Yes, I love vinyl. I mean, it's coming, as you know, it's back. And if there's an album I want now, I mean, you know, Springsteen, Dylan on the rock side, or even a show or a score, I'll always buy vinyl if I can. And you can get vinyl nearly on everything now. Well,
of course, I've been with Ace Records for years, and they told me the other day, because they are putting my latest album, which of course is being launched tonight, but they said it's going to take a bit of time to get the vinyl, because there's a 9-month waiting list.
Really?
It's a bit like having a baby, because there's so many people wanting to press vinyl.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's that long, because a lot of albums seem to be getting stuff out about the same time, vinyl about the same time as the CD or whatever. Or whatever they do now, they drop it in some social media. I can never find it. But,
talking of dropping it, did you used to have a record player that you'd stack them up and it dropped down?
Yes, that was terrific. It worked for 45, providing they had a little grip thing on. I mean, don't get me. I mean, I can talk for 2 hours on record labels.
Yes, please do. I'd be happy to, because I worked in
HMV were blue, Parlophone were red, Columbia were green, the singles. And, I'm already getting boring.
Decca was blue.
Decca was blue.
Because I was on Decca.
And there weren't that many labels in those days. There was EMI, Decca, Philips, and Pi.
I was on Pi.
With the 4 companies. I mean, there were little places like Oriole or Saga, I think, and little labels like that. But in the 50s and even well into the 60s, I mean, new labels gradually came into the marketplace. But I worked at EMI in '66 for a couple of years. And really, this massive company, the biggest company in the world, only had about 8 labels. And some of them were American labels like Capitol or Tamla Motown.
Yeah.
But home-produced labels, 4 or 5, and that's all. Now, 50.
Or more.
I mean, 50 for every small company almost.
Well, I was signed in '73 to RCA. Can't remember what colour were they?
They were orange in England, but they were black when Elvis was on RCA, which indeed he was forever. But when they set up independently away from Decca, which was their distributors, they had a new company, new smart offices in Curzon Street, and they had an orange label, which I didn't like as much as the black one. But I'm sure your record was still very good.
Well, I was signed in America, so...
In America it would have had a much more distinguished label with the HMV dog on it. It's a very long story. Nipper. It's a long story why RCA have Nipper in America, or did. I don't doubt if they still use it now because there ain't much of a label going. No. But HMV had it over here, His Master's Voice.
Yeah. Well, I actually like the days of labels. You could go into a record company, you could say hello to your pals. I wouldn't know where to go any longer because
there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
I mean, and the problem is that there's no real quality control because anybody, and this in a way it's a plus, anybody can make an album. But just because you make an album now and you can put it out and issue it yourself, make it in your front room, and it'll sound great technically, or it could do. But there's no quality control. Back in the 60s, if you wrote a song or made a record, as we did, maybe 70s, I should be more accurate.
No, for me, 60s.
Yeah. In order to get a record out there, somebody else, at least one person or one company had to like it. So that was a kind of quality control. Now anybody could put out anything and nobody else would have to like it until it was, it could be good, but there's no way of telling.
Those were the good old days of the A&R man, or as some people used to call in the business, R, because they don't know their art from their elbow. But I mean, that's not quite fair, actually. But I must say I'm rather fond of the old days, and I must be in the minus crowd because I actually like CDs, because I like it that it goes from A to Z, and you don't have to get up and turn the thing over. But the sleeve, you could read your infos on a big...
On an old album,
an album. I mean, it was all there.
Yeah, CDs seem to go for tiny print quite a lot. I suppose I shouldn't be complaining about that because if you're 19,
do you wear
it wouldn't
glasses?
Matter. Occasionally.
Yes, I do for reading.
Personal moments. But CD packaging is disappointing because there's not a lot you can do on a small, what's it, 5-inch square, if that.
Not much you can do with 5 inches, mate.
Exactly.
And actually, do you remember the absolute lie they always told at the very beginning was CDs are indestructible.
You can put jam on it.
Yes,
that's right.
They're not indestructible. No. You can get scratches and then they don't work.
And you don't know. I mean, the great thing about a vinyl record is that if it suddenly goes, you can actually take it off and, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And it can be fixed sometimes. But on a CD, if it goes AWOL, you just don't know what to do.
Were you one of those nerds that used to look at, the label is there on the LP, and sometimes the artist would have a little message.
Yeah, a little message sometimes.
Well, I had them put on, the people that printed. And I think the Stones did.
Yeah,
and
they did all
the
that.
Beatles had number 9 or something written in.
Often something rather rude. But,
yes, mine was.
But sometimes the guy mastering the vinyl album would have his own little message on.
Oh, yeah.
So, the Stones might get blamed for something that was, for once, wasn't then.
The mastering was everything. I remember being sent to America to go and do mastering on the main man stuff. Yeah. Because I think they didn't think there was anyone good to do it here. We were sent off to some famous guy in New York. They had them here, obviously.
Yeah, there were some, the guy who did the original album, Superstar, the studio one before the show, that was mastered in England and done very well.
You probably don't remember this, but when I saw in the Stage magazine, or maybe it was Melody Maker, which I don't think either exist anymore, there was a tiny ad saying wanted voices for demos of Jesus Christ Superstar, and the long list of Mary, Jesus and everything. And I wrote a letter.
You did, I remember it.
A very long letter.
With a terrific picture of yourself as a water ski champion.
Yes,
I thought, well, if we were recording a water ski album, she'd be the first choice.
And I included a single which had been produced by Jimmy Page. Of course, he was just a session guy. He wasn't Led Zeppelin then.
I'm sure, I do remember, because you sent it to MCA,
I don't know, wherever it was, and you replied and said, I'm sorry, but we have just met the day before I got this letter. We just met
Yvonne Elliman.
Yvonne Elliman, so I didn't get in there.
No, Yvonne, I have to say, was terrific. And Andrew found her, actually.
In the Pheasantry, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right,
yeah.
yes. And
I remember.
And I went down to hear her literally almost dragged out of bed. What I was doing in bed that early and what Andrew was doing in the pheasantry that late, I don't know. But I went off, got up, went down to pheasantry, and she was very good. But had your letter come in earlier?
But
you never
no,
know.
I always liked
But you were
her
great.
anyway.
You were on stage. You were fantastic.
Well, I always felt that I looked the part of the tart with the heart, let's face it.
All that and more.
However, superstar apart, after that, can you give me a potted history for our viewers? Well, I mean, because there's so many
who is
musicals.
this guy?
Who is he? What's he
Who is
doing?
this
Why is he
jerk on the
dressed
sofa
like this?
Talking about RCA record labels.
No, because you did what? I don't say the wrong ones.
No, I did not do Cats, I have to say.
Right. I never saw it.
Nothing to do with me.
Chess?
Chess, Evita was the one after
Yes.
Superstar. And then,
I auditioned for Evita, but there's that song, Rainbow High, and I can't hit the high notes.
Yeah.
That was what Elaine was so good at.
It was right up Elaine's alley, that one.
Yeah.
And after Evita, I did a thing called Blondel, which did okay.
I saw it.
Quite funny. It only ran a year.
Chris Langham.
Yes. Oh, he was brilliant.
He was
absolutely
brilliant man, fantastic man, one of my oldest friends.
No, he's a great guy. I saw him not that long ago, and I was
he's
very,
okay.
very glad to see him. I hope he's okay.
Good.
He's a very talented man.
Isn't he? Doesn't he used to write Not the 9 o'clock
Yes,
news?
yes.
Brilliant. So what happened after Blondel?
Then I think I did Chess was the next one I did. It was, yes.
And then?
And that was Bjorn and Benny. And then I translated a French show called Starmania, which was actually had a great score. And we made a nice album, but it didn't do anything other than in France, weirdly, in English. And then I joined Disney, which was my lucky break. I was thinking maybe that was it. I've had a good run. But Disney were going to do the film of Evita, which in fact at that point they didn't.
Yeah.
But I was loitering around the Disney studios in Hollywood, meeting one or two people and saying, I'd really like to work on some of your wonderful animated features, because they were just coming back. When I was a kid, I mean, I loved the Disney cartoons.
Fantasia was my favourite.
Well, that was one of them.
Yeah.
And Peter Pan, you know, all those early ones when I was a little nipper, Dumbo.
Could you even? I couldn't watch Bambi though. It was far too brutal. The mother dies.
Bambi was very sad, but it was still grown-up stuff. I don't think they'd let you have that today. You couldn't have too much tragedy, even in a cartoon.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes. Sorry.
No, don't worry. I lost my drift.
No,
Totally.
you were loitering in Disney.
I was loitering, and they said, "Oh, could you like to work on a Dolly Parton film?" And I said, "Sure." And I was given a job of song placement on this Dolly Parton film. Dolly had written these songs, they just wanted suggestions as to where to put songs. I thought something Dolly could do much better than me. Anyway, I got paid a little bit for that, and the film came out. It was called, oh God, I've forgotten the name of the film.
It wasn't 9 to 5.
No, that was a wonderful film. It wasn't a bad film, but it didn't do incredibly well. Anyway, they then said, well, the animation department was taking off again. They'd had big hit with Little Mermaid, and then they'd had a bigger hit with Beauty and the Beast, which was a good film. And they were now working on Aladdin, but because everything was going so well, they wanted to do 2 animated features at the same time. Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg were the bosses at the time. And they said, well, we've got this, if you really want to do some writing, we've got this wacky idea about a lion cub. And they had a 1 page, and it was called King of the Jungle, which wasn't a very good title because there's no jungle where the film took place. Anyway, I thought I'd love to give it a go, and it was just me and a producer and a director, and that was it. And at one point they said, as it was gradually taking shape with a very good team of writers, Roger Allers and a whole load of them, Don Hahn. I mean, it's a really good, Rob Minkoff, a wonderful team of Disney people. And as the project grew in the offices, more people came on board. Except we hadn't got a guy to write the music. I was sort of being signed up to write the words of the songs, which they wanted to come first. And I said, well, they said, you can have anybody you want. And I said, Elton John. And I said, but you won't get him. And they said, we'll get him. And I got a call about a week later from Elton, who I knew a little, but not well. And he said, what's all this King of the Jungle thing? And I said, well, it's a cartoon and it's Disney and I think it could be quite fun and I thought you might like to try it. And he said, I'd love to. But the deal, I can't do it. I can't, it's just a terrible deal. And I said, I fully understand. And I thought, I was right. They didn't get him. And then 2 days later, Elton's manager rang up and said, when do we start? And I thought, he's got a better deal than I have. Anyway, it went really well because he was brilliant. I mean, he's in a way the best composer I've worked with. I don't mean that quality-wise, although there's no one better. He always trusted the lyricist. I'm sure Bernie had the same thing. He never said, I don't like that word.
You gave him the lyrics first.
I gave him the lyric first, and that was a new one for me.
Yeah.
With Alan Menken, who I'd done some stuff with. Actually, there's another story there. But with Andrew and other composers, the tune had always come first. Although the story has to come first of all.
Yeah.
You've got to have the plot. So and it was go plot, music, lyrics. And in Evita, I did the plot. Andrew wrote the music, and then I stuck the words on. I mean, it took a little more time than that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But Elton was terrific because he was on the road all the time, so he couldn't really turn up to every meeting. But we were all able to get the lyrics and the storyline pretty right before we sent it off to him. And he delivered a sensational score.
He did. So did you do anything after Lion King? I mean, or are you now sitting back on your laurels and playing cricket? No, I must have done something.
Yes, I did a show with Elton we did a film called Road to El Dorado, which was okay. The songs were good. The plot was a little bit strange. That was for DreamWorks. Then we did a musical called Aida, which did really well on Broadway. It ran for 5 years. It's never come here.
No, it
depending on
hasn't
where
come
you
here.
are, of course. But it's played in several countries, and there was a talk about doing Aida in England just before COVID, and I went over for a couple of meetings and workshops to work out the plan of campaign, and then of course that's all been put on hold. But Aida might come here. I mean, to be brutally honest, if it comes, I'm thrilled. If it doesn't, I don't mind.
You've done so much
exactly.
Anyway.
And I also did a show which I really did like, I mean, it didn't do very well here, called From Here to Eternity, with a really talented unknown composer called Stuart Brayson. And that we're setting up, trying to, again, COVID struck, but we have a director and a producer to do a UK tour, so that might happen. But I wrote a song for the Truro Cathedral Choir the other day.
Well, you see, it's good to do some different things.
Give me my hand in.
And haven't you got a radio show?
And I did a podcast.
Yeah.
I did 50 of those, and I've taken a break because they're all out there, and most people haven't heard of them or haven't listened to them. I mean, we got a sort of loyal following.
Eventually, you know.
Yeah, and I thought there's no point in putting 100 out there until people have heard the 50, and a lot of people have heard. I mean, I've had some nice mail on it and everything. But I'm going to do some more podcasts, I think, in the near future.
And your memoirs?
One on each show. My memoirs, Volume 2. You mean you haven't read Volume 1?
No, have you got Volume 1?
Not on me.
But you have?
Yes,
You've done them.
I did Volume 1.
I stand corrected. I didn't know.
No,
How embarrassing.
You're in it.
Oh, am I?
Yes, but it only went up to...
Everything.
No. Up to 1970, up to Evita, opening in London. And I had a deal to do Volume 2, and I never got round to it. But the trouble is, I can remember everything that happened in the 70s, and the more recent stuff, I can't remember a thing.
Yeah, what on earth were we doing last week?
I know.
mean, it is quite difficult.
I think my first one did okay. It wasn't a mega hit. It's quite funny because it didn't come out in America. It came out in Australia, it came out here. And I thought it ought to come out in America because at the time I had 4 shows on Broadway. And the American agent said, well, you're not well known enough. We don't know, nobody knows you. I said, well, how many more shows do I need to have at the same time? And, I thought, I can't be bothered to push it anymore. I thought I'm going to traipse around trying to sell the book. And but it's still out there and people can buy it. But
I'll look for it. I shall look for it.
I'll send you a free copy, or at least reduced price.
Well, didn't I send you my memoirs?
You did. It's fantastic.
I wanted to.
It's one of the heaviest books I've ever. It's beautifully made. It weighs a ton.
It weighs a ton.
I'm terrified of dropping it on my foot.
Postage is ridiculous.
Yes.
But it's kind of big. But that's
it's great. It's beautifully produced and a great read as well.
I've just done the audio book.
Yes,
have you done that of yours?
Well, again, I was asked to come in and do it, and the guy said, we've got to edit it because it's a bit long. And I went for a session, and it didn't make sense because they'd cut out paragraphs which I'd referred back to, and in the end I said, I don't want to do this.
I didn't cut anything out when I did the Audible book, but the publisher cut about 150 pages of stories out of mine, so I'm now going to have to write Volume 2 with all the stories that got away. Of which there are quite a lot.
I mean, I'm thinking of making my Volume 2 a bit more succinct and including a lot of the stuff of Volume 1 because anybody who bought Volume 1 will have forgotten it. And it came out in 1999, I think.
Oh, right, no, it's time to
Yeah.
kind of put the next one together.
And also, time marches on, you think, I'd like to get my retaliation in first, you know.
Well, if you were having to stand before the gates of St. Peter and you had to say, there's one thing I'm really proud of, well, that's if you get to St. Peter. He may,
Yes,
of course,
exactly.
send you down there where it's all happening. But is there one thing that you're most proud of that you've done more than anything else?
Well,
I'm talking about
it wouldn't be work.
business.
Oh, in business. I was going to say, no, but there again, I wouldn't.
Cricket?
No. Cricket's a hobby.
Women? Dogs?
Dogs.
Oh, tell me about dogs.
No. I never quite believe sometimes when people, you know, win an award. I mean, I'm a bit two-faced about awards. I think on the whole, they're daft. But on the other hand, they're quite fun. But I never quite, I look at people and say, when they say, this is the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And I think, really, you know, getting an award from people whose opinions might not be very good, you know, and it's great to get an award. If you're in the competition, it's better to win it than not. But I find that sort of thing, that would never be the great moment of my life.
Well, it must have been quite a buzz to have been made a Sir.
Well, my first reaction was, I remember getting the letter and thinking, bloody hell. And then I thought, I'll have to behave, which of course I was doing anyway.
Of course.
But I was.
Of course.
It's a two-edged sword, as you would know, being in the public eye. And I'm not, thank God, in the public eye as much as a lot of people.
No.
But no, I thought, well, it's quite nice to get one. I mean, Andrew got one first, quite rightly, probably because he'd had far more hits than I had at that point. And it was, I remember my brother, I was staying with my brother, who's got nothing to do with show business, but we're very close, and he came in one morning into my bedroom and said, I've got good news and bad news. And I said, really? He said, well, I said, give me the bad news first. He said, the bad news is it's Sir Andrew Lloyd-Webber. And the good news is, I said, what's the good news? He said, I made you a cup of tea. But I mean, Andrew thoroughly deserved it. It was a good gag on behalf of my bro.
Oh, yeah,
but no, it was
good.
nice. It was nice. Of course, it was nice to get one. But sometimes I feel a bit, you know, in America they get it wrong, call you Sir Rice, and I've noticed that here a lot now. I mean, it's
Really?
logical because you are replacing Mr. with Sir.
Yeah.
So if you're Mr.
Mr.
Rice, you
Rice.
should be Sir Rice. And trying to explain to people that actually you call me Sir Tim, and they think that's too intimate. Although again, these days that's changed as well.
Everything
But-
has changed these days.
Yeah, no, it's quite fun to get it, I suppose. Although I sometimes think it might have been cooler to have turned it down and then to have people say,
No,
"Why haven't you got one?"
I think it's good to
No,
accept
it's quite
it.
fun. Yeah.
I'm so pleased that
My
you
mum was
said-
pleased. Sorry.
I'm sure.
Yes, yeah.
Is your mum still alive?
Sad to say no, but she only died at the age of 90, not that long ago.
Ooh, good for her.
Yeah, and she kept all her marbles.
That's even better. Well, let's hope we.
Yes,
keep
I'm a
our
bit worried about my
marbles.
own.
I want to thank you for coming into sitting on the sofa and chatting
It's
to me.
lovely here.
Going down a bit of the old memory lane, as Lionel Bart always called it.
Oh, the great man, Lionel
Yeah,
Bart.
the great man.
Yeah.
And do you know, while we're talking Lionel, they still haven't put up a blue plaque to say where he lived round the corner from me in Rees Mews. They got Francis
Really?
Bacon next door, but they haven't put Lionel's plaque up. And I think it's a scandal.
And worse than that, there's no West End theatre named after him.
Dreadful.
You know.
And I used to know him so well. And
Yeah.
let's face it, Oliver has to be one
He
of
was a
the
huge,
great...
huge influence on us.
Yeah, me too.
And he was a great pop songwriter. He wrote so many great pop records, you know, not just Living Doll. I mean, he wrote, you know, stuff for Adam Faith. He wrote, you know...
From Russia with Love.
From Russia with Love, Do You Mind by Anthony Newley. A lot of Tommy Steele hits.
Yes.
You could have a great, probably is one, a great double album of Lionel Bart's pop hits, in fact. Tris, where are you? Get one out.
I'm with you.
And,
Well, but he wrote, I'm going to lock her up in a trunk, so nobody...
that's Living Doll.
So, I mean,
yeah.
just brilliant, brilliant lyrics.
No, it's a great lyric. It's got great internal rhymes, you know.
Yes, you like that.
And
Well, we've
things ain't what
digressed.
they used to be. Brilliant.
Fantastic. And, well, anyway, we're talking about Lionel. I could
Yeah.
talk about Lionel all day, actually, because I knew him so
I got
well.
to know him a bit in that I didn't know him when you knew him, unfortunately, but I got to know him in the last 3 or 4 years of his life. He came to the Sods, songwriting things.
Yeah, well,
and I was honoured. I wanted to sit next to him and ask him questions.
He's a great guy. Anyway, I want to thank Tim, Sir Tim.
I've hardly started.
I know. Well, we could do part 2.
On Tuesday, right.
Yeah, well, yes. No, because the whole thing about globetrotting is actually got to be quite short.
Sorry.
Because people don't have much attention span these days.
Right. Keep
so
listening.
I'm just incredibly honoured that you came and sat here and
No, it's wonderful.
and natted away.
No, I've enjoyed, plenty of your other shows. So.
Well, I sent them to you, and anyway, the thing is, when you sit down in this place, it's not like any other venue.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I could see the sofa and everything, and I could see it was an interesting place, but I hadn't really got a clue as to all this.
Well, yeah. Well, we're going to go out and now chat to Guy Fletcher. Tell me what he's written. Millions of things.
Well, he's written. He's not only a great songwriter. He's written, Holly's hits, and he wrote "Power for All Our Friends to Cliff." I mean, great, good pop songs.
Yeah, I love that.
And he's also been a very. I mean, he was Big Cheese in the PRS. He's a very important fighter for songwriters' rights.
Marvellous. I'm going to go out and attack him.
He's got the OBE or CB or something. He should be a knight.
Really? Well, maybe he will. There's still time. I want to say thank you to Tim. I mean, really thank you for coming here.
Thank you. I'll shut up now.
And tune into another Globetrotting with Gillespie, and we're going to have somebody equally interesting as you.
Careful, you're going to say
even
more interesting. Yes.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Right.
Tim, in a way, changed my life. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else in between. Bye.
Just remember all that you've been taught. Time to play an indoor sport. There's more holes than a judo champ, and there's more fire than a Boy Scout camp. Do the horizontal boogie, just a beat on the side. Do the horizontal boogie, take me for a boogie ride. Take it lying down. Just a bit on the side.